the strike that broke silence. For 3,000 years, the galaxy had learned a simple rule. Peace was enforced, not earned. The celestial concord ruled from marble halls and orbiting thrones, its laws written in ancient scripts and maintained by the strongest power among them, the Aurelian Empire. Wars still happened, but only in controlled forms. Limited fleets, sanctioned targets, and tidy casualty numbers that made the assembly feel civilized. Earth existed quietly within that order. Humanity was known for its diplomats, its doctors, its disaster fleets that arrived unarmed and left no flags behind. They spoke often of restraint, of lessons learned too painfully during their early years among the stars. Their warships were few, their borders modest, their votes in the assembly predictable. They were not feared. That mistake cost the galaxy everything. The first strike came without declaration. At 3:17 Universal Time, coordinated Aurelian precision lances burned through Earth's orbital lattice. The targets were not shipyards or defense platforms. They were hospitals, vast white-ringed sanctuaries rotating gently above the planet. Climate stabilizers shattered next, their failure rippling through atmospheric systems that had taken centuries to balance. Lunar traffic control vanished in a bloom of silent fire, turning the moon's orbit into a graveyard of drifting metal. On Earth, the sky lit up like a falling constellation. Millions died in the first hour. Tens of millions more followed, not from explosions but from what came after. Power grids collapsed. Weather systems turned violent. Debris rained down in cities that had not seen war in generations. Across the galaxy, the news spread in stunned disbelief. The Aurelian Empire called it a compliance strike. They claimed Earth had violated trade protocols, had hidden military developments, had grown non-cooperative. No evidence was presented. None was needed. The Concord accepted the explanation with practiced neutrality. Observers expressed concern. Committees were formed. No fleets moved to help. On Earth, the silence after the strike was worse than the noise. General Amina Voss stood inside the wreckage of Orpheus Station, one of the orbital hospitals now reduced to a twisted ring of metal and frozen bodies. Her command shuttle hovered nearby, scarred and barely holding pressure. She had been coordinating civilian evacuations when the first lance struck, close enough that the shockwave had thrown her across the command deck. She rose unsteadily, boots crunching over shattered glass, and looked out at the curve of Earth below. Smoke stained the atmosphere. Storm systems were already forming where stabilizers had failed. Somewhere down there, entire cities were burning, and there was nothing she could do fast enough to stop it. Amina had worn many titles in her life: soldier, strategist, negotiator. She had ended 3 interstellar conflicts without firing a shot, earning a reputation as a general who believed words were stronger than weapons. That reputation died with Orpheus Station. Emergency signals flooded what remained of Earth's networks. Calls for aid, for justice, for someone to intervene. Amina issued only 3 orders. First, seal Earth's borders. No ships in or out without authorization. Second, activate global continuity protocols. Governments fell silent as automated systems took over, ensuring no single strike could decapitate humanity again. Third, convene the Galactic Assembly. The Aurelian envoy expected desperation. What appeared instead was a woman in a scorched uniform, standing alone against a dark background. No banners, no medals. Her face was pale, her eyes steady, her voice calm enough to unsettle even seasoned diplomats. "This is General Amina Voss," she said, "Supreme Commander of Earth Strategic Defense." Murmurs filled the assembly chamber. Some delegates looked away, already uncomfortable. Others watched with open curiosity, as if this were theater. The Aurelian envoy smiled faintly. Amina did not raise her voice. "You have destroyed our hospitals," she continued. "You have destabilized our planet. You have killed civilians by the tens of millions, and you have done so without declaration, without evidence, and without restraint." She paused, not for effect, but because she was counting the dead. "We are aware of your accusations," she said at last. "We reject them. We will not petition for arbitration. We will not request aid. And we will not pretend this was a misunderstanding." The envoy leaned forward. "General, the Concord." She cut the channel to him alone, isolating her feed across the assembly. Then she spoke the words that would be remembered long after empires fell. "You struck Earth first," Amina Voss said. "Now we are coming for you." She ended the transmission before anyone could respond. Across human space, systems long thought dormant came alive. Shipyards that officially did not exist unlocked their docks. Fleets hidden in deep gravity wells adjusted their vectors. Factories designed for civilian use shifted seamlessly into wartime production. Buried deep beneath Earth's shattered capitals, a final authorization code passed through layers of command. Ancient, redundant, unquestionable. Protocol Ashfall, active. The galaxy would not understand what that meant until it was far too late. On Earth, rescue crews worked through the night, pulling survivors from rubble while the sky burned overhead. Children were carried from collapsed homes. Doctors operated without power, guided by emergency lights and trembling hands. Humanity mourned, but it did not beg. And far beyond the edge of known space, fleets that had never been seen by alien eyes began their long, silent journey outward, toward an empire that believed peace was permanent and restraint was weakness. The silence was over. The doctrine humanity never shared. The Aurelian Empire dismissed the warning as theater. In the first hours after General Amina Voss's transmission, Imperial analysts flooded the Emperor's War Council with reassuring projections. Earth lacked the industrial output for prolonged war. Human fleets were scattered, lightly armed, and, most damning of all, politically divided. History showed that humans argued among themselves before they ever unified against an external enemy. By the time Earth organized a response, the Empire would have already dictated the terms of surrender. The Emperor listened, nodded, and authorized no immediate countermeasures. That was mistake number 2. On Earth, there were no speeches, no televised calls for unity. The sky was still burning in places. Orbital debris rained like artificial meteors. Emergency sirens had become background noise. And yet, beneath the chaos, something ancient and precise was unfolding. Protocol Ashfall did not begin with a launch. It began with silence. Across Sol, systems long believed decommissioned came online without announcement. Deep space relays that had not transmitted in decades awakened and aligned themselves with coordinates far beyond Imperial charts. Buried facilities beneath deserts, oceans, and mountains unlocked themselves through biometric confirmations that required no spoken command. The authorization had already been given, not by politicians but by doctrine. Humanity had learned early that centralized power was fragile. Their first interstellar wars, centuries ago, had taught them that empires fell not because of inferior weapons, but because too many decisions relied on too few minds. When humans rebuilt their military philosophy, they did something no other species found logical. They planned for extinction-level opposition. Every fleet commander knew only part of the whole. Every ship carried autonomy measured in years, not minutes. Civilian industries were quietly engineered to shift into war production without legislative approval. Even Earth's universities had contingency syllabi, courses designed to be converted overnight into weapons research and logistics training. None of it was hidden out of malice. It was hidden because humanity had sworn never to need it. Until now, General Amina Voss stood in a command chamber carved deep beneath what had once been Geneva. The old city above was gone, replaced by a crater still steaming from orbital fire. She did not look at the holographic casualty projections anymore. She had memorized them. "Status," she said. Admiral Reyes answered without looking up. Phase 1 proceeding. Imperial hyperspace corridors in sectors 9 through 13 are unstable. We didn't collapse them, just made them unreliable. Amina nodded. That was deliberate. A collapsed lane could be rebuilt. An unpredictable one destroyed confidence. "Banking nodes?" she asked. "Frozen. Imperial credit markers are being rejected by neutral systems." Not our doing directly, just data integrity checks we triggered. Turns out their economy runs on trust more than force. A faint, humorless smile crossed her face. It always does. Humanity still had not fired a shot. Instead, trade convoys drifted powerless between stars. Imperial governors found themselves unable to pay garrisons. Orders sent from the core world arrived days late. Or not at all. The Empire's greatest strength, its vast interconnectedness, became a liability as uncertainty spread faster than any human fleet. In the Galactic Assembly, panic replaced smug indifference. Neutral powers accused one another of sabotage. The Aurelian envoy demanded emergency sanctions against Earth, only to discover that no one could agree on how to enforce them without using the very trade routes now malfunctioning. And still, Earth remained silent. That silence infuriated the Emperor. "You are telling me," he said coldly, "that a secondary species has paralyzed half our logistics without declaring war?" "Yes, divine sovereign," his intelligence master replied. "They are not attacking us. They are removing assumptions." Enraged, the Emperor authorized a second strike, this time openly military. No more precision compliance. No more plausible deniability. Aurelian battle groups jumped directly toward Earth, targeting population centers instead of infrastructure. When the first impacts hit, Amina felt something inside her finally fracture. The numbers climbed faster than before. Cities that had survived the initial orbital collapse were erased in firestorms. Emergency bunkers became tombs when planetary shields failed under sustained bombardment. Around her, officers waited for the order they knew was coming. Amina closed her eyes, not in grief, but in calculation. She remembered the words written into protocol ashfall centuries earlier, words she had once considered excessive. If restraint is answered with annihilation, restraint becomes complicity. She opened her eyes. "Authorize Phase 2, she said. The room exhaled as one. Across deep space, dormant human fleets altered course, not toward the Empire's borders, but toward its arteries. Weapons previously locked behind ethical firewalls unlocked themselves, not to kill indiscriminately, but to end the Empire's ability to choose violence. As the first human strike vessels slipped into positions the Empire did not know existed, General Amina Voss recorded a single internal log entry, one that would never be shared with the galaxy. "We did not come to conquer," she wrote. "We came to make sure you can never do this again." And for the first time since the war began, humanity aimed something directly at the Aurelian Empire. Not its worlds, its future, when humans stop holding back. The first Aurelian war fleet died without ever seeing an enemy. It entered the Hecadic corridor in perfect formation. 32 capital vessels, escorts flaring with imperial gold, banners broadcasting imperial authority across every known frequency. For 3,000 years, that sight alone had ended conflicts. Worlds surrendered at the approach. Admirals bowed. Trade routes bent. This time, space itself betrayed them. Gravity twisted, not violently, not explosively, but precisely. The corridor folded inward like a clenched fist. Hyperdrives misfired. Ships collided at relativistic speed, hulls tearing like paper. Others were pulled apart molecule by molecule as space-time gradients spiked beyond tolerances no Aurelian engineer had ever needed to consider. No human ship fired shot. General Amina Voss watched the data scroll in silence from the command pit beneath what remained of Geneva. Her face was still, carved from discipline and exhaustion, but her hands were clenched behind her back. "Fleet neutralized," an aide said quietly. "No survivors." Amina closed her eyes, not in grief for the enemy, but an acknowledgement of the line just crossed. "Log it," she said. "Phase 2 continues." Across imperial space, the illusion of control unraveled. Humanity did not announce its escalation. It did not issue ultimatums or grand declarations. It simply acted everywhere all at once. Autonomous human microfleets emerged from stealth orbits around key imperial systems, their AI cores adapting in real time, rewriting tactics faster than Aurelian admirals could issue orders. Imperial shields failed, not because they were weak, but because humans had studied them for decades in silence. Energy harmonics were inverted. Redundancies were exploited. What should have taken centuries of war was reduced to weeks of cascading failure. At the same time, the truth spread. Human intelligence services released archives across the galactic datasphere, suppressed footage of Aurelian pacifications, erased populations, sterilized worlds, cultural extinctions signed off as administrative corrections. Species who had lived under imperial rule for generations saw, many for the first time, what obedience had cost them. Revolts ignited, not orchestrated, inspired. Human agents did not lead the uprisings. They supplied medics, encryption keys, evacuation routes. They taught resistance cells how to survive, not how to hate. The Empire's subjects rose not for humanity, but against the lie that had ruled them. The Aurelian Emperor called it chaos. Amina called it consequence. Inside the war council chamber, tension was finally cracking human restraint. They hit Jakarta, Admiral Reyes said, voice raw. Another city. No warning. Civilian saturation strike. The casualty counter on the wall ticked upward, indifferent to anger. Amina stared at the number. For a moment, the room faded, replaced by memory. Her first command, decades ago, standing between two alien fleets, forcing a ceasefire with nothing but words and nerve. She had believed then that understanding could always be reached. She believed differently now. Authorize retaliation, Reyes pressed. Full scale. End this. Amina inhaled slowly. No, she said. The word landed like a blow. They want us enraged, she continued, steady but cold. They want us to become what they already are. We don't need to destroy worlds to win. She turned to the hollow map, isolating the Imperial core. We remove their reach, their fleets, their authority, their myth of inevitability. A pause. Prepare Operation Eclipse. Several officers went still. That's irreversible, someone said. Amina met their gaze. So was Jakarta. Operation Eclipse did not target planets. It targeted time. Human kinetic platforms, hidden in deep interstellar dark for centuries, activated simultaneously. Each launched a single payload, dense, inert mass accelerated to a fraction of light speed, set on trajectories that would intersect Imperial shipyards, fleet assembly zones, and military-only orbital infrastructure weeks later. No alarms, no intercepts, just inevitability. The Empire scrambled too late. Fleets recalled, defenses redeployed, but you could not outmaneuver physics already in motion. One by one, Imperial military hubs ceased to exist, erased in silent flashes that left surrounding civilian zones untouched and watching. Fear spread faster than destruction. An Aurelian Grand Admiral was captured during the collapse of the Third Armada. Brought aboard a human vessel, he expected torture, execution, spectacle. Instead, he was given water, medical treatment, a chair. Why? He demanded, mandibles trembling. Why dismantle us like this? Why not end us? Amina entered the room alone. Because annihilation teaches nothing, she said. Memory does. He stared at her, defiant even in defeat. You could have been gods. She shook her head. No, gods are what we prepared for. She leaned closer. You struck Earth first. Now you will live long enough to understand why that was a mistake. By the end of the cycle, the Aurelian Empire still existed, but could no longer wage war. Its fleets were gone. Its subject worlds were free. Its emperor broadcast surrender requests into a galaxy that no longer listened. Amina watched the final report arrive, her reflection faint on the glass. Humanity had stopped holding back, and the stars had noticed. The kind of peace humans leave behind. The war did not end with a final battle. It ended with silence. Across the former territory of the Aurelian Empire, star lanes flickered back online one by one, not under Imperial banners, but under neutral control. No victory announcements echoed through the void. No human fleets paraded through conquered skies. The Empire still existed, technically, but it had been hollowed out so completely that even its enemies struggled to define what remained. General Amina Voss stood on the observation deck of Earth's rebuilt orbital command, watching distant points of light drift across the glass. Each star marked a system that would never again answer to an imperial order. Not because humanity ruled them, but because the Empire no longer could. The final phase had been precise, almost surgical. Human task groups entered imperial core space not as conquerors, but as auditors of power. Shipyards were dismantled. AI governance cores, once the Empire's invisible hand, were isolated, copied, and shut down. Military academies were closed under international oversight. Entire fleets were decommissioned in place, their crews allowed to return home under strict demilitarization accords. Not one Aurelian world was glassed. Not one population center erased. That restraint unsettled the galaxy more than annihilation ever could have. Former subject species watched in disbelief as humanity did what no power in recorded history had done. It won a total war without claiming territory. The message was unmistakable. This was not conquest. This was correction. The celestial concord collapsed within weeks. Its chambers, once filled with ritualized diplomacy and carefully worded indifference, now echoed with accusation and fear. Member states scrambled to distance themselves from the Empire's actions, but the records humanity released told a different story. Votes abstained, warnings ignored, suffering deemed acceptable collateral. When the Concord formally dissolved, there was no ceremony. Only a data release marking the end of an era that had confused stability with justice. The new assembly convened under a temporary charter. Its first act was to invite General Amina Voss to speak. She did not wear medals. Her uniform was plain, the insignia of rank removed. She stood alone before representatives of hundreds of species, many seeing a human commander for the first time, not through propaganda, but in person. Her voice carried no anger now. Only wait. You ask what humanity intends to do next, she said. That question misunderstands what has already happened. She gestured, and the chamber filled with projections, charts of dismantled fleets, liberated systems, restored trade routes. We did not come to rule you. We came to end a threat. That task is complete. A murmur rippled through the chamber. A representative from a former imperial ally spoke, its voice trembling. And the Empire? Amina met its gaze without hesitation. The Empire will live, she said. It will govern itself. It will remember this war every time it considers another. Another voice followed, sharper. Is this forgiveness? Her answer was immediate. No, Amina said. It is restraint. She let the words settle. Forgiveness is personal. This was strategic. Earth lost billions. We will never call that acceptable. But extermination teaches nothing. Memory does. She leaned forward slightly, hands resting on the lectern. Understand this clearly. Humanity does not seek to be feared, but we will not allow our restraint to be mistaken for weakness again. Peace survives only when aggression is remembered. That was all. She turned and left the chamber without waiting for applause or response. Across human space, the war quietly ended. Shipyards returned to civilian use. War AIs were sealed behind layers of oversight. Memorials rose where cities had fallen. Simple structures bearing names, not slogans. Earth rebuilt differently this time. No grand declarations of eternal peace were made. No promises that such a war would never happen again. Instead, humanity changed its posture, quiet, watchful, prepared. Military transparency ended beyond soul. Defensive networks remained active, their existence neither confirmed nor denied. Children on distant worlds began learning a new piece of common knowledge, passed down not as propaganda, but as caution. Do not strike Earth first. On a small terrace overlooking the blue curve of her homeworld, Amina Voss removed her uniform for the last time. She folded it carefully and placed it into a case already heavy with history. A junior officer hesitated behind her. Ma'am, he said, the galaxy will talk about this war for centuries. Amina nodded, eyes still on Earth. They should. Do you think they'll understand what you did? He asked. She considered that, then shook her head. "No," she said softly, "but they'll understand the outcome." The officer saluted and left her alone. Below, the planet turned peacefully, scarred but alive. Humanity had not conquered the stars. It had not claimed an empire or rewritten borders in its name. But it had rewritten something far older and far more dangerous: the assumption that humans could be hurt without consequence. The stars would remember that lesson. And that, Amina knew, was the kind of peace worth leaving behind.